That night, my mother raised her glass before the entire family and declared, "Single women at 35 are just failures." I smiled, fingers brushing the chain that concealed my wedding ring. Then the dining room door opened. The man who walked in wasn't just the boyfriend they'd been gossiping about. He was my biggest secret, and the blade that would sever my family's control forever. That night, more than truth would be revealed. The plan I'd been crafting for 3 years was about to unfold. My name is Rachel Monroe, and at 35, I've become an expert at living two lives, one for my mother's approval, and one for myself. Growing up in Westbridge, New York, wasn't just about privilege, it was about perfection. Our colonial sat on 3 manicured acres, complete with the requisite country club membership and dinner parties where children were trophies to be displayed. My mother, Evelyn Whitaker, orchestrated our lives like a symphony conductor, every note precisely placed, every crescendo calculated for maximum impact. I was 13 when Dad died. Mark Whitaker, the only person who'd ever told me it was okay to color outside the lines, had a heart attack in his study on a Tuesday afternoon. I found him slumped over his desk, fountain pen still in hand, working on another contract that would never be signed. The paramedics said he'd been gone for at least an hour before I walked in. After that, Mother's grip tightened like a vice. Without Dad's gentle interventions, her standards became suffocating mandates. My GPA had to exceed 4.0. My weight couldn't fluctuate beyond 3 pounds. My friends required vetting their parents' portfolios examined before playdates were approved. I learned to smile through it all, the good daughter performing her role flawlessly while something inside me slowly calcified. "Jessica Hartley's daughter just made partner at Morrison and Associates," Mother would say during our weekly calls. Even after I'd moved to Denver, 32 years old, engaged to a surgeon from Johns Hopkins. That's what proper planning accomplishes. These conversations always ended the same way, me staring at my reflection in my apartment's bathroom mirror, wondering when I'd started looking so tired. My job at Aurora Media Labs paid well. Senior communications strategist wasn't a title to scoff at, but it was never enough. Not when measured against Mother's invisible yardstick of acceptable achievements. The pressure intensified after I turned 30. Phone calls at 11:45 p.m. became routine. "Do you understand what people say about women your age?" she'd hiss through the phone. "They wonder what's wrong with you. They assume you're damaged goods." Is that what you want the Whitaker name associated with? I'd moved to Denver for the mountains, for the space, for the ability to breathe without feeling her disappointment in every inhale. But geography couldn't sever the invisible threads she'd woven through my psyche. Even 1,500 miles away, I could feel her judgment pressing against my ribs. My therapist called it enmeshment. I called it survival. You learn early in families like mine that love comes with conditions. Printed in fine text you're never allowed to read, but always held accountable to. You learn to compartmentalize, to build walls between who you are and who you need to be at family gatherings. The last time I'd brought someone home, a perfectly nice marketing director named James' mother had dissected him over appetizers. His shoes were wrong, his laugh too loud, his parents were new money, which apparently carried the social weight of leprosy. James and I broke up 2 weeks later, not because of her directly, but because I couldn't stop hearing her voice every time he smiled. "You're too picky," she'd said afterward, as if she hadn't orchestrated the entire demolition. "But also not picky enough. You need someone with presence. Rachel. Someone who elevates you." Standing in my Denver apartment, looking out at the Rockies painted purple by the setting sun, I understood what she really meant. I needed someone who elevated her, someone she could brag about at the country club, whose accomplishments she could weaponize against her rivals' children. That's when I decided to stop telling her anything real about my life. Small lies at first, working late when I was actually at a pottery class, visiting friends when I was hiking alone, thinking of happiness as contraband to be hidden from her scrutiny. I'd learned to be strategic, something Dad had taught me through chess games in his study. "Sometimes," he'd said, moving his queen across the board, "the best move is the one they don't see coming." I met Ethan Cole at a farmer's market on a Saturday morning when the aspens were just starting to turn gold. He was standing at a honey vendor's stall, holding a jar up to the light like he was examining liquid amber. Something about the way he studied it patient, unhurried, genuinely curious made me raise my camera and capture the moment. "That's a beautiful old Pentax," he said without turning around. "K1000. How did you—" I lowered the camera. Surprised, the shutter sound. He finally faced me, and his smile was crooked, unpretentious. "My dad had one. Said digital could never capture light the same way." Ethan wasn't handsome in the way Mother would approve of no sharp jawline or commanding presence. He had carpenter's hands and laugh lines that suggested he used them often. He worked at a clean energy R&D facility, designing components for wind turbines. "Basically, I make really expensive pinwheels," he'd joked. Our first real date wasn't even a date. He'd offered to fix my Pentax when it jammed, and I'd brought coffee to his workshop as thanks. The space was organized chaos metal shavings, blueprints, a half-built bicycle suspended from the ceiling. We talked for 3 hours while he cleaned each tiny component with the focus of a surgeon. "You know what I love about mechanical things," he said, reassembling the camera with practiced ease. "They're honest. They either work or they don't. No pretense, no politics. Just function and form existing together." Within weeks, we'd fallen into an easy rhythm. Tuesday night tacos at the place with mismatched chairs, weekend hikes where he'd carry my camera bag without being asked, evenings at his apartment where he'd cook while I edited photos, comfortable silence wrapping around us like a blanket. Mother's interruptions came like clockwork. "There's a wonderful gastroenterologist visiting from Boston next week," she'd announce. "Harvard Medical, comes from excellent stock. I've arranged dinner at the club." "I'm seeing someone," I finally admitted during one call, immediately regretting it. The silence stretched taut before she pounced. Details. Now. I gave her the minimum: his name, his job. Each word felt like handing over ammunition. A mechanic. Her voice could have frosted windows. "Rachel, you're 33 years old. You can't afford to waste time on someone without ambition." "He's an engineer. Mother. He designs for some startup that will fold in 2 years. You need stability. You need someone who can provide the life you deserve." After she hung up, I sat in my apartment feeling hollow. Ethan texted asking about dinner, and I almost canceled. But then I remembered how he'd looked that morning at the market, studying honey in the sunlight, finding beauty in simple things. "My mother doesn't approve of you," I told him that night over pad thai. "Does she know me?" "She knows enough." He set down his chopsticks, really looking at me. "Rachel, I'm not dating your mother. It's complicated. She has expectations." "And what do you expect?" No one had ever asked me that, not in a way that suggested my answer mattered more than anyone else's. Mother escalated her campaign. She'd call at 6 a.m. with concerns about my future. She'd email articles about fertility decline after 35. She arranged surprise visits to Denver, forcing me to hide evidence of Ethan like I was a teenager with contraband. During one visit, she stood in my apartment conducting an inspection. "You're living like a college student," she declared, fingering my second-hand bookshelf with distaste. "That man is dragging you down to his level." That night, after she'd returned to her hotel, Ethan held me while I cried not dramatic sobs, just quiet tears of exhaustion. "Shh, you don't have to choose," he said into my hair. "But you do have to decide if you're living your life or hers. You don't understand what she's capable of. The calls, the guilt, the way she can make me feel worthless with a single raised eyebrow." "I understand enough." He pulled back to look at me. "I understand that you're brilliant and kind, and that you see beauty in everything except yourself. I understand that someone taught you to doubt every instinct you have, and I understand that I love you enough to wait while you figure out whether that's going to be your forever or just your history." The proposal came on Lookout Mountain at sunset, 8 months after we'd met. Ethan didn't make a production of it that wasn't his way. We'd hiked up to watch the light fade over Denver, something we'd done dozens of times. But this time, he pulled out a small wooden box he'd made himself. "I carved this from a piece of pine that fell during that windstorm last month," he said, kneeling on the rocky outcrop. "It's not perfect, but it's real, like us." Inside sat a simple silver band with a small sapphire, my birthstone, not a diamond. Inside the band, he'd had engraved R&E, "Keep it honest." "Rachel Monroe," he said, "I'm not asking you to choose between me and your family. I'm asking you to choose yourself, to choose the life you want, not the one anyone else planned for you. Will you marry me?" I said yes before my brain could catalog all the reasons I shouldn't. For once, my heart spoke first. The call to mother that night was the hardest I'd ever made. My hands shook as I dialed, Ethan sitting beside me, our fingers interlaced. "I'm engaged," I said when she answered. The silence stretched so long I checked to see if the call had dropped. To him, her voice was arctic. That mechanic, his name is Ethan, and yes. "You're making a mistake that will ruin your life. He has no connections, no family worth mentioning, no prospects beyond that ridiculous job. What will people think?" "I don't care what people think." "You will. When you're 40 and exhausted, living in some suburban tract house, watching your friends vacation in Europe while you clip coupons, you'll care then." "Mother, if you marry him, you're on your own. I won't watch you throw away everything I've built for you, everything the Whitaker name stands for. Choose him, and don't bother calling me mother anymore." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling simultaneously hollow and free, like a tooth finally pulled after months of pain. "We could wait," Ethan offered quietly. "Give her time to adjust." "She won't adjust. She doesn't adjust. She bends the world until it fits her vision." I turned to him. "I want to marry you, but I want to do it our way, quietly, privately, without her poison touching it." 3 weeks later, we stood in a small courthouse in Golden, Colorado. My cousin Nora flew in from Portland, the only family member who'd ever stood up to Mother. Ethan's parents drove down from Wyoming, his mother clutching tissues, his father clapping him on the back with proud tears in his eyes. I wore a simple cream dress from a vintage shop. Ethan wore his only suit with a wildflower boutonniere I'd picked that morning. The ceremony took 11 minutes. The judge who married us had kind eyes and wished us decades of happiness. "You can wear the ring on a chain," Ethan suggested that night as we lay in bed, officially married. "When you visit family, I mean, until you're ready." I thought about it, the hiding, the pretense. But then I thought about protecting this fragile, perfect thing we'd just created. Mother had a way of poisoning what she couldn't control. Maybe keeping the secret wasn't weakness. Maybe it was strategy. "Just for a while," I said. "Until I figure out how to tell them in a way she can't destroy." He kissed my forehead. "I knew who you were when I asked. Your complications included. We'll handle it however you need." The next morning, I transferred my ring to a silver chain Ethan had bought, letting it rest against my heart, hidden but present, secret but solid. Mother called that afternoon as if nothing had happened, discussing plans for Thanksgiving, reminding me that the Pemberton family would be joining us and their son Charles was recently divorced and ready for someone mature. "I'll be there," I said, fingering the ring through my shirt. "Good. And Rachel, I hope you've come to your senses about that situation. Sometimes we need these little rebellions to appreciate what really matters." I agreed with her for the first time in months. I had come to my senses. I did know what really mattered. It just wasn't what she thought. 3 years of living split between two worlds taught me the weight of secrets. They accumulate like sediment, layer upon layer, until you're carrying geology in your chest. Our house in Edgewater became my real life, a 1940s bungalow with creaking floors and a kitchen Ethan renovated himself. I'd been promoted to senior director at Aurora Media Labs, handling crisis communications for Fortune 500 companies. Funny how I'd become an expert at managing other people's disasters while orchestrating my own. The spare bedroom transformed slowly. First, just paint soft yellow like morning light. Then a rocking chair Ethan's mother gave us. For whenever. The crib came next, assembled on a Sunday while snow fell outside. I was 4 months pregnant, finally showing, finally real. We should tell them, Ethan said, tightening the last bolt. After she's born. I promised. It'll be harder for Mother to deny a grandchild who already exists. Ivy arrived at 317 Wam. On a Tuesday in March. 6 pounds. 4 ounces of perfect contradiction. Ethan's calm eyes. My stubborn chin. His parents drove through a blizzard to be there. His mother cooking freezer meals while his father built a changing table. I sent Mother one text. You're a grandmother. Her name is Ivy. Her response came 12 hours later. I don't know what game you're playing, but lies like this are beneath even you. I almost sent the birth certificate. Almost. But I'd learned to save ammunition. The logistics of deception were exhausting. When Mother announced visits to Denver, I'd move back to my old apartment kept now solely for this purpose, bleeding $1,200 monthly for a stage set. I'd pack away Ivy's toys, Ethan's books, our life, like a criminal hiding evidence. Mama go, Ivy asked during one of these evacuations, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Just for a few days. Baby, we're going on an adventure. Ethan would take her to his parents' ranch while I performed daughter duties lunch at Mother's approved restaurants, listening to her critique my inability to commit, dodging her arranged meetings with eligible men. You're 38, Rachel, she said during her last visit, dissecting a Cobb salad with surgical precision. Dr. Morrison says fertility treatments have excellent success rates if you start now. I'm not interested in fertility treatments. You will be. When you're 45 and alone, you'll wish you'd listened. I excused myself to the bathroom and video called home. Ivy was finger painting, purple up to her elbows, singing the cleanup song Ethan taught her. My husband waved from behind her, mouthing, "You okay? No, yes, both." The fractures in our marriage started small. Ethan supported me, but support and understanding aren't the same thing. She's 2 years old. Rachel, he said one night after I'd rushed to hide Ivy's artwork before Mother's unexpected arrival. She's starting to notice the hiding. I know. Do you? Because yesterday she asked why Grandma Evelyn can't see her drawings? What did you tell her? The truth. That some people need time to appreciate beautiful things? Ethan, I won't lie to our daughter. I'll protect your secret, but I won't teach her she's something to be ashamed of. He was right. I knew he was right, but knowing and acting were different countries, and I'd lost my passport between them. Work became my escape and excuse. I restructured Aurora's entire crisis protocol, earning a feature in Communications Quarterly. Mother actually praised it, finally, something worthy of the Whitaker name. If only she knew I'd written it at 4 a.m. while nursing Ivy, my wedding ring finally on my finger in my own home. The financial drain felt like penance, the apartment rental, duplicate wardrobes, the therapy I'd started to navigate the maze I'd built. Dr. Kemper, my therapist, never pushed, just asked questions that sat like stones in my stomach. What are you protecting your mother from the truth, or yourself from her reaction? My family, Ethan and Ivy. Are you, or are you protecting the part of you that still needs her approval? I didn't answer. Couldn't. The breaking point came during Ivy's 3rd birthday. We threw a party Ethan's family, our friends, the life we'd built. I took hundreds of photos, none of which I could share with my family. That night, after everyone left, I found Ethan in Ivy's room, watching her sleep. How much longer? He asked without looking at me. I don't know. That's not an answer anymore. Rachel, it's been 3 years. I know. He finally turned, and the exhaustion in his eyes mirrored mine. I need you to choose. Not between us and her, I'd never ask that, but between living one life or two. Because this half-existence is teaching our daughter that love requires hiding. That night, I sat with my laptop, writing and deleting emails to Mother. Each version felt either too aggressive or too weak, too much truth or too much lie. Finally, I closed the computer and pulled out the invitation that had arrived that morning, the Whitaker family reunion. Black tie, mandatory attendance. Maybe emails weren't the answer. Maybe it was time for a different strategy altogether. The invitation arrived on cream cardstock so thick it could double as a weapon. The Whitaker family summer reunion, embossed in gold lettering that caught the light like a threat. Mother's handwriting on the accompanying note was precise as ever. Family only, black tie, don't disappoint me. I stood in my Denver kitchen, reading it while Ivy ate breakfast, getting more yogurt on her face than in her mouth. The contrast felt surreal, my daughter's sticky fingers reaching for me while I held this artifact from another world. "What's that, Mama?" Ivy asked. "An invitation to a party." "Can I come?" "Not this one, sweetheart." Ethan read the invitation that night, his jaw tightening. She's really outdone herself. The passive aggression is almost artistic. The email followed 2 days later, Mother's tone dripping with false concern. "I've taken the liberty of inviting Brandon Hale, recently divorced, managing partner at Hale Capital. I thought you might enjoy intelligent conversation for once." "She's matchmaking," I told Ethan, "at a family reunion." "She's doing more than that. She's setting a stage." He was right. Mother never did anything without calculating 3 moves ahead. This reunion wasn't just about family, it was about publicly addressing my situation, my singleness, my failure. The RSVPs rolled in through the family group chat I usually muted. Cousin Patricia from Boston, Aunt Margaret from Connecticut, the entire Pemberton branch from Philadelphia. Each confirmation felt like another witness being called to my eventual humiliation. "I should just not go," I said one night, watching Ethan help Ivy with a puzzle. "You should do whatever feels right," he said carefully. "But running isn't the same as choosing." Mother called the next week with the logistics. "The caterers need final numbers. You're not bringing anyone, correct?" "Correct." "Good. Brandon is quite eager to meet you. I showed him your Communications Quarterly article." He was impressed. "Mother, wear the blue Valentino. It's the only dress you own that doesn't make you look like middle management." "I didn't own a blue Valentino. I'd sold it 2 years ago to help cover the down payment on our house." "Of course." "And Rachel, do something with your hair. The last photos I saw, you looked exhausted." The last photos she'd seen were from my company's website, taken when I was 7 months pregnant and hiding it under strategic blazers. The night before the reunion, I sat in our bedroom, packing. Ethan watched from the doorway. "You know what she's going to do," he said quietly. "I know." "She's going to parade you in front of everyone, make you a cautionary tale." "I know." "And you're still going." I folded the dress I'd bought black. Simple, nothing that would meet her standards. I'm tired of defending empty territory, of protecting her from a truth that shouldn't be shameful. So tell her, call right now. "No." I turned to face him. "She wants to make me a spectacle, fine, but I'm choosing the show." The morning of the reunion, I stood in that rented apartment one last time, looking at the space I'd maintained as a museum to my false life. 3 years of rent, $43,000. 3 years of lies, countless. 3 years of watching my daughter learn to hide priceless in all the wrong ways. I video called home while doing my makeup. Ethan had Ivy in her high chair, both of them making silly faces at the camera. "Good luck tonight." "Mama," Ivy chirped, waving sticky hands. "Remember," Ethan said, his tone shifting serious. "Whatever happens, we're here, we're real, we're yours." "Actually," I said, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "Be ready. I might need you." His eyes sharpened. "What are you planning?" "I'm not sure yet, but I'm done letting her write my story." The drive to Westbridge took 3 hours. I spent it listening to voice memos Ivy had made nonsense songs, declarations of love for our cat, questions about why clouds float, real life, my life. I arrived at 4:30 p.m., half an hour before the official start. The house blazed with light, every window a golden rectangle against the manicured lawn. Servers in crisp uniforms arranged flowers that cost more than most people's rent. Mother stood in the foyer directing traffic, resplendent in silver Chanel. She looked me up and down, her mouth pinching. "That's not the Valentino." "It's not. Brandon will be here at 6. Try to be charming." I smiled, the same smile I'd perfected over 38 years. Compliant, empty, strategic. Of course, Mother. She didn't notice my hand drift to my collarbone, fingers finding the chain that held my ring. She didn't notice the phone in my pocket, recording. She didn't notice that for the first time in 3 years. I wasn't afraid. The relatives arrived in waves, air kisses and evaluating glances. I played my part, deflecting questions about my situation with practiced evasion. But this time, I also watched, listened, waited, because Mother had taught me chess, even if she didn't know it. And tonight, she'd finally exposed her king. The week before the reunion, I'd moved like a chess player setting up an endgame. First, I'd called Nora. "I need you to bring something to the reunion," I'd said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "Finally," she'd breathed. "What do you need?" I'd overnighted her a package our marriage certificate. Ivy's birth certificate with Ethan clearly listed as father, 3 years of family photos, and a USB drive with video clips Ivy's first steps, her second birthday, Ethan teaching her to ride a tricycle, the evidence of my real life. "Keep these in your purse," I'd instructed. "When I give the signal, be ready." Next, I'd contacted the AV company Mother had hired for the reunion. A donation to the technician's daughter's college fund ensured he'd have a projector available for family videos with a laptop already connected. My grandmother loved surprises. I'd lied smoothly. I'd reached out to specific relatives Aunt Emma, who'd been ostracized for marrying beneath her station, but still attended out of stubborn pride. Uncle David, Mother's younger brother who'd always chafed under her control. Cousin Michael, a family lawyer who understood documents better than emotions. "Something's going to happen at the reunion," I'd told each of them. "I need witnesses who will see clearly." The hardest call was to Ethan the night before. "I need you to come to Westbridge. Not inside. Not yet. But be there. Rachel, park at the Starbucks on Main Street. Keep your phone on. When I text, come to the house. Use the main entrance." "Are you sure about this?" "She's going to humiliate me either way. At least this way. I'm choosing the terms." He was quiet for a moment. "What should I wear?" "Your charcoal suit, the one from our anniversary dinner." "Ivy, bring her to your parents. This isn't for her to see. Not yet." The morning of the reunion, I'd made one final preparation. I'd had my lawyer draft a cease and desist letter regarding harassment, ready to be served if necessary. Nuclear option. But I'd learned from Mother always have leverage. Standing in the Westbridge mansion now, watching relatives circle with champagne and judgment, I felt the pieces clicking into place. Brandon Hale had arrived at 6 sharp handsome in that aggressive Wall Street way, scanning the room like a predator identifying prey. "You must be Rachel," he said, Mother's hand on his elbow, steering him toward me. "Your mother's told me so much about you." "All terrible, I'm sure," I said lightly, cataloging his expensive watch, his evaluating gaze, the way he stood too close. "On the contrary, she says you're brilliant, just unfocused." Mother beamed. "Brandon's been dying to discuss your crisis management strategies. Perhaps somewhere quieter." "Actually," I said, loud enough for others to hear, "I'm enjoying the party. Wouldn't want to miss any family announcements?" Mother's eyes narrowed slightly, but she recovered. "Of course. Brandon, Did I mention Rachel's 38, still so much potential? Age is just a number, Brandon said, though his smile tightened. Yes, Mother continued, though some numbers matter more than others. Like 0, the number of grandchildren I have, despite Rachel's advancing years. Several conversations paused. The trap was being set. I excused myself, heading to the bathroom but stopping by the AV setup instead. The technician nodded subtly. Everything was ready. I texted Nora, 20 minutes. Then I sent a message to Ethan. It's time, main entrance, don't knock. Returning to the main room, I found Mother holding court near the fireplace, Brandon at her side like an accessory. She was building to something I knew, that rhythm, that calculated escalation. Family is everything, she was saying. Legacy, continuation, proper partnerships. Some understand this intuitively. Others, her gaze found me, require more time. Speaking of family, Aunt Margaret chimed in, several drinks deep. Rachel, dear, anyone special, you can't keep us in suspense forever. No suspense, Mother answered for me. Rachel's married to her career, though at 38, one wonders if that's by choice or default. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. I touched my necklace, feeling the ring beneath fabric. You know, Brandon said, playing his assigned role. Professional women often just need the right incentive to consider family life. Incentive, I repeated. Interesting word choice. Mother raised her champagne glass, and I knew this was it, her grand moment, her public correction of my failures. A toast, she announced, to family, to those who understand that legacy requires sacrifice, standards, and sometimes. She looked directly at me. The courage to admit when we've failed to meet them. The room was silent, everyone waiting. After all, she continued, voice carrying perfectly, a single woman at 35 isn't just behind schedule, she's a fundamental failure of planning and purpose. My phone vibrated, a text from Ethan. Outside. I smiled, genuinely this time. You're absolutely right. Mother, 35 is significant. She blinked, not expecting agreement. Which is why, I continued, moving toward the center of the room. I made sure not to be single at 35. The front door opened with perfect timing. Ethan walked in, calm and solid in his charcoal suit, looking like everything Mother said. He wasn't confident, comfortable, completely at ease with who he was. His eyes found mine across the room. 3 years of secrets, about to shatter like champagne flutes against marble. The room froze like a photograph, champagne glasses suspended mid-sip. Conversations halted mid-word. Ethan walked through the silence with unhurried purpose, his eyes never leaving mine. I'm not single, I said, my voice carrying clear across the room. I haven't been single for 3 years. I stepped forward, meeting Ethan in the center of the space. His hand found mine, warm and steady. Everyone, I'd like you to meet my husband, Ethan Cole. Mother's champagne glass tilted, spilling onto her silver Chanel. This is ridiculous. Some actor you've hired. Not an actor, I said, pulling the chain from beneath my dress, letting my wedding ring catch the light. My husband, the father of your granddaughter. Granddaughter. Aunt Margaret gasped. I nodded to the AV technician. The projector flared to life on the white wall Mother had specifically chosen for its clean aesthetic. The first image, our wedding photo from the Golden Courthouse. Simple, genuine. Ethan's parents beside us. Nora grinning in the background. That's photoshopped, Mother said, but her voice wavered. The video started playing. Ivy on her first birthday, cake in her fists, laughing as Ethan sang off-key. Then, Christmas morning, our living room floor covered in wrapping paper. Ivy toddling toward the camera calling, Mama, Mama, look. You just taught us all, I said, not taking my eyes off Mother. That 35-year-old single women are failures. So what do you call a woman who's been married 3 years with a beautiful daughter? What do you call someone who built exactly the family she wanted, just not the one you demanded? Brandon had backed away, understanding he'd been recruited for a battle that was already lost. Several relatives moved closer to the projection, murmuring about how much Ivy looked like me. "Documents can be forged," Mother said desperately. "This proves nothing." Nora stepped forward, pulling papers from her purse. Marriage certificate from the state of Colorado, birth certificate from Denver Presbyterian Hospital, deed to their house in Edgewater, both names listed. She handed them to Uncle David. All legitimate, all legally binding. Why, Mother's composure finally cracked. "Why would you hide this? Because you told me not to marry him. You said if I chose Ethan, I shouldn't call you Mother anymore. So I chose him, and I chose to protect my family from your poison." "I was trying to protect you." "From what?" "From a man who loves me without conditions. From a quiet life where success isn't measured in dollars or connections. From happiness that doesn't look like yours." The room had reorganized itself, some relatives drawing closer to us, others maintaining Mother's orbit. Uncle David was examining the documents with professional interest. Aunt Emma had tears in her eyes. 3 years, Mother said, and for the first time in my life, she looked small. 3 years of lies. 3 years of peace, I corrected. 3 years of Sunday pancakes and bedtime stories. 3 years of being loved for who I am, not who you needed me to be. I gave you everything. You gave me expectations, standards, anxiety that took years of therapy to unravel. You gave me a script for a life I never wanted to live. The projector cycled through more photos, Ethan teaching Ivy to plant tomatoes, me holding her at the Denver Botanic Gardens, our family at his parents' ranch, evidence of a life fully lived. You want to know the irony, I continued, finally letting years of words flow unchecked. I'm successful by any reasonable standard. Senior director at a major firm, homeowner, wife, mother. But because Ethan doesn't golf at the country club, because he works with his hands as much as his mind, because he didn't come pre-approved by your social circle, none of it counts. Brandon cleared his throat. I should go, stay, I said sharply. You were brought here as my potential salvation. Right, the appropriate match. Tell me, Brandon, what do you think of a woman who hides a happy marriage just to avoid her mother's judgment? He looked uncomfortable. I think she probably had her reasons. I did. I do. I turned back to Mother. Every time I visited, I scrubbed my life from that apartment, hid my daughter's drawings, slept alone in a bed that costs $1,200 a month to maintain as a prop. Do you know what Ivy asked me last week? She asked why Grandma Evelyn can't see her art, 3 years old, and she's already learned that some love requires hiding. You could have told me. Could I? The woman who just announced to everyone that single women at 35 are failures, who arranged blind dates at my father's memorial dinner, who told me I was damaged goods at 32. Ethan squeezed my hand. His presence was steady, grounding. Everything Mother's chaos wasn't. You know what? I reached up and removed the chain completely, sliding the ring onto my finger where it belonged. I'm done. Done hiding. Done apologizing. Done pretending that your approval matters more than my daughter's right to exist openly. The video had reached recent footage last week. Ivy reading a book to our cat, sounding out words with determination. My throat tightened, but my voice stayed strong. From now on, I'm not managing 2 lives. I'm living one. You can be part of it on my terms, which means respecting my husband, acknowledging your granddaughter, and stopping the constant criticism. Or you can maintain your perfect standards with one less failure to manage. I looked around the room, meeting the eyes of family I'd kept at arm's length for years. That goes for all of you. This is my family. We're not perfect, but we're real. And we're done hiding. Aunt Emma started clapping slow, deliberate. Uncle David joined. Then Nora. Then others, until half the room was applauding while the other half stood frozen in Mother's traditional territory. Mother's face had gone pale beneath her perfect makeup. You've humiliated me. In my own home. No, I said quietly. You humiliated yourself. You just didn't expect me to hold up the mirror. We left through the main entrance, walking past the same relatives who'd watched me shrink under Mother's criticism for decades. This time, I didn't lower my eyes. Ethan's hand held mine as we descended the stone steps where I'd once practiced perfect posture for cotillion. In the car, I pulled out my phone. Ivy's face filled the screen when Ethan's mother answered the video call. Hi, Mama, hi, Daddy. Did you win? I laughed the first real laugh I'd released in that house in 20 years. Yeah, baby, Mama won. Good Grandma Jane made cookies. Can you come home now? Home. Not the Westbridge mansion with its marble and misery. Not the fake apartment I'd finally stop renting. Home was a bungalow in Edgewater with crayon marks on the walls and a garden Ethan had built with his own hands. We're on our way, sweetheart. The drive back to Denver took 3 hours. We spent the first hour in silence, decompressing. Then Ethan reached over and took my hand. How do you feel? Like I just performed surgery on myself without anesthesia. But the tumor's gone. My phone buzzed with texts. Aunt Emma. About time someone stood up to her. Uncle David. Your daughter is beautiful. When can we meet her properly? Nora. You're my hero. Also, Brandon looked like he was about to wet himself. I turned the phone to silent. They could wait. We pulled into our driveway at 10:45 p.m. Ivy had tried to wait up but was asleep on Ethan's father's shoulder, still clutching a half-eaten cookie. We tucked her into bed together, a simple ritual that felt revolutionary after years of doing it alone while Ethan waited in another room during Mother's visits. The next morning was Sunday. Pancakes. Like always. Ivy got syrup everywhere. Like always. But this time, when she asked if she could draw a picture for Grandma Evelyn, I said yes. Really? Her eyes went wide. Really? Draw whatever you want. She spent an hour on it, a crayon family portrait with surprisingly accurate details. Ethan's messy hair, my coffee cup, our orange cat, herself in the middle, arms spread wide like she was hugging the whole world. I photographed it and sent it to Mother with a simple message. Your granddaughter made this. Her name is Ivy. She's 3.5. She likes butterflies and hates carrots. When you're ready to meet her without conditions or criticism, let me know. Mother didn't respond for 3 days. When she finally did, it was one line. The child has my nose. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't acceptance. But it was acknowledgement. And from Evelyn Whitaker. That was something. I wrote back, when you're ready to be a grandmother, not a judge, our door is open, but only on our terms. Those terms were simple. No criticism of Ethan, no comments about our house, our choices, our life. No attempting to reshape Ivy into her image of perfection. She could be part of our family as it was, or not at all. 6 weeks later, she came to Denver, not to the old apartment, to our real home. She stood on our front porch in her designer suit, looking absolutely lost. Ivy opened the door before we could. Are you Grandma Evelyn? Mama says you like fancy things. I have a fancy rock. Want to see? And my mother, the woman who'd never met a situation she couldn't control, let a 3-year-old in mismatched socks lead her by the hand to examine a perfectly ordinary piece of quartz. She stayed for 2 hours. It was awkward, stilted, full of careful navigation around decades of sharp edges. But when Ivy hugged her goodbye, Mother's eyes went soft in a way I'd never seen. She's remarkable, she said at the door. She's herself, I replied. That's enough. Mother nodded slowly. Perhaps. Perhaps I could visit again. Next month. We'll see. As her town car pulled away, Ethan wrapped his arms around me from behind. You know this isn't fixed. Right, one visit doesn't erase everything. I know, but it's not about fixing her. It's about choosing us. That night, I took down the last box from the closet, 3 years of hidden photos, documents, memories I'd kept separate from my acceptable life. I spread them across our dining room table. Ivy pointing at each one, asking for stories. Tell me about this one. Mama. It was from our wedding day. Such a simple photo, Ethan and me outside the courthouse. Autumn light making everything golden. We looked so young, so certain, so unaware of the battle ahead. That's the day Daddy and I promised to be a family, I said. Was I there? Not yet. But we were already hoping for you. She studied it seriously. You look happy. We are. And for the first time in 3 years, I didn't have to hide that happiness. I could wear my ring on my finger instead of a chain. I could put our family photos on my desk at work. I could exist as myself, wife, mother, woman who chose love over approval. My phone buzzed, another relative reaching out, another bridge to possibly rebuild or permanently burn. I'd deal with it tomorrow. Tonight. I had pancakes to clean up, a bedtime story to read, a husband to hold. The only approval I needed was my own. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Are you on your commute, at home, maybe taking a walk? Please subscribe to the channel and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever had to stand up to family expectations? How did you find the courage to choose your own path? Let's connect and share our experiences together.